The circulatory system, consisting of the heart, arteries, capillaries, and veins, is the pumping mechanism that transports blood throughout the body. In the heart, the left ventricle contracts, pushing red blood cells into the aorta, the body's largest artery. From here, blood moves through a series of increasingly smaller arteries until it reaches a capillary, the junction between arteries and veins. Here, oxygen molecules detach from the red blood cells and slip across the capillary wall into body tissue. Now deoxygenated, blood begins its return to the heart. It passes through increasingly larger veins to eventually reach the right atrium. It enters the right ventricle, which pumps it through the pulmonary arteries into the lungs to pick up more oxygen. Oxygenated, blood re-enters the left atrium, moves into the left ventricle, and the blood's journey begins again.
This breathing occurs because of the respiratory system, which includes the nose, throat, voice box, windpipe, and lungs. At the top of the respiratory system, the nostrils bring air into the nose, where it's filtered, warmed, and moistened. Tiny hairs called cilia protect the nasal passageways and other parts of the respiratory tract and filter out dust and other particles that enter the nose through the breathed air. Air can also be breathed in through the mouth. The two airways of the nose and mouth meet up at the pharynx, which is located at the back of the throat. The pharynx carries both food and air and is used for digestion and respiration. One path is for food. This is called the esophagus, which leads on to the stomach. The other side is for air. It's called the trachea. A small flap of tissue, called the epiglottis, covers the air-only passage when we swallow. This stops food and liquid from going into the lungs. The larynx, or voice box, is located at the top of the trachea, the air-only pipe. This is where our vocal cords are. The trachea, or windpipe, which is a 2 to 3 centimetre tube, then extends downwards from the bottom of the larynx for about 12 centimetres. The walls of the windpipe are made strong by stiff rings of cartilage that keep it open. The trachea is also lined with tiny hairs. They sweep foreign particles and fluids out of the airway, keeping them from entering the lungs. The windpipe divides into two branches, and each one of these enters one of the two lungs of the body. Each branch resembles the limbs of a tree, dividing into smaller, finer branches called bronchioles. The bronchioles end in tiny air sacs called alveoli, which look a bit like grapes. These structures enable fresh air to get to the air sacs, which are surrounded by tiny blood vessels, or capillaries. The oxygen passes through these air sacs and travels through the capillary walls into the bloodstream. At the same time, carbon dioxide transfers from the bloodstream into the air sacs, where it gets breathed out of the body.
The nervous system controls all the actions of our body. It has two parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is comprised of the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of many nerves, which are spread throughout the body. Let's first understand the brain, its parts, and what they do. Our brain is the most complicated organ of our body. It has three major parts: the cerebellum, cerebrum, and brainstem, which is also known as the medulla. The cerebrum is the biggest part of the brain. It controls our senses, our imagination, and our thoughts. So, whatever we see, touch, taste, smell, think, or imagine is controlled by the cerebrum. The second major part is the cerebellum. It is known as the little brain. It controls our motion, balance, and our ability to learn new things. For example, you can walk without falling because of the cerebellum. Also, it helps with learning any new thing. The third major part is the medulla. It is also known as the brain stem. It does a few things, which are called involuntary actions. It controls our digestion, heartbeat, and breathing. These things happen automatically in our body. we don't have to put any effort here. So now you know about the brain. Can you remember it all? Good. The cerebrum is in charge of sensing, thinking, and imagination. Wow, you're right. The cerebellum is also responsible for muscle movement and control, and it also helps us in learning. Great, you're right about the medulla also. It is running our body from the inside. Now, do you want to learn about the peripheral nervous system? The peripheral nervous system is made up of many nerves, which are present throughout the body. The peripheral nervous system has two functions. Some nerves receive information, like when you taste something. These messages are carried to the brain by these nerves. The nerves which take the message from senses to the brain are called sensory nerves. Other nerves carry messages from the brain to the body. These are called motor nerves. They carry instructions from the brain to the body on what action to take. Like, for example, if you were eating chili, which the brain told you was bitter. So now you're doing a spitting action. All nerves are made up of neurons. A neuron has three major parts: a nucleus, which is the cell body, dendrites, and the axon. Dendrites take in the electric messages to cell bodies. Axons take the message away from the cell body. So dendrites are like entry to a parking lot, and axons are the exit route from parking. So, buddy, do you now know why the brain is important?
La mayonesa es un instrumento.
No, Patricio, la mayonesa no es un instrumento.